This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your source for the latest Iowa ag news headlines right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, Mark Magnuson, and Andy Peterson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Mark.
Hello and welcome into Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Mark Magnuson. Today is Wednesday, October 1st, 2025, and we're so glad you can join us for today's show. In today's episode, we will be joined by Ethan Robson of agmarket.net for the closing market discussion. But first, it is Andy Peterson, joined by Lee Koenigsfeld. He is a Northeast Iowa Beck's Hybrids agronomist, as Andy and Lee talk about the harvest season.
Well, we're hoping to get out in the field soon in the combines as we visit here with tremendous Northeast Iowa area agronomist for Beck's Hybrids, Lee Koenigsfeld. And combine behind me here, Lee, sort of indicates, I think, what's going to be pretty common here, maybe even in the next couple of days across the state.
Yeah, I mean, I know we've had some combines, not necessarily in the crop that's pictured behind you there rolling too much, but we've definitely had some corn coming out here in Northeast Iowa, and I think the beans have started a little bit this week. I'm starting to see more beans starting to come out, but I think that's going to be a hot and heavy thing starting to really start to roll here going into this weekend and then into next week. I think the bean harvest pace is really going to pick up as we see forecast looks sunny and with some pretty decent temperatures that it's carrying with it too. So I think we're going to get some dry out on the beans. I think the big thing there is we actually need to go out and check the beans for moisture. Don't just look at the stems. The stems are not necessarily the best indicator of how wet the soybeans are within the pods. So we saw that a little bit last year. We had some green stems with dry beans inside, and I think we're seeing that a little bit again this year. Not nearly as bad, but I do think we've got some beans that are drier than what guys are probably thinking they are right now. So don't wait too long, because we know we don't need to give away any free water weight any more than we have to. So
yeah, and of course Mother Nature's always a threat, and you've been experiencing that too with I guess some hail claims, some hail problems.
Yeah, we had hail come through earlier this week here in Northeast Iowa. And, you know, the big risk there, obviously, when we get hail this time of year with those beans and those pods being as dry as they are, and you get those hailstones hit those pods, and it can crack those open, spring those open, essentially. And those pods are kind of spring loaded to a certain degree. Once they get cracked, they kind of curl on themselves really quick. And then they'll fling those beans all over the place. And we've definitely got some cases where that happened worse than others. And a lot of that is just going to depend on how mature that soybean plant is. You know, if you've still got a little bit of green in there, they're going to hang on to those pods a little bit better. There's more moisture to help hold that pod together. If those pods are dry, they can crack pretty darn easily, especially if the hail's on the front side of the storm. They didn't have some nice gentle rain ahead of that to, you know, maybe softening them up a little bit. So, but that storm came pretty hard and quick with some pretty decent hail in it. So, definitely be keeping an eye out of that. If you did have hail out of that storm earlier, go make sure you're checking your bean fields and making the appropriate phone calls if you're seeing some pods that got busted open there.
Mm-hmm. And then harvest prioritization. The beans at 14%, because you know they'll get to 10 at some point, versus standability concerns in corn.
Yeah, it all needs to come out, unfortunately, and in a hurry. So it's going to be one of those things where we know this corn crop is deteriorating relatively quickly. We saw some fields that probably didn't have a fungicide application with just some poor southern rust tolerance inherently get dried down, you know, almost probably over a month ago. We saw those things basically completely dried down. Those fields are basically gone and they have been harvested to this point in time. And now it's a matter of monitoring those fields that maybe did get that fungicide application, but now the fungicides completely wore off. You know, we've used up that. And now we're starting to potentially see some of those stalk rots start to set in. I'm starting to see a lot more anthracnose popping up in cornfields now. Going out, doing those push tests to help see which hybrids need the most help or have the least amount of time as far as their standability within the field is going to be. So keeping an eye on that, and then also trying to make sure that we're not combining beans at 8%. Unfortunately for us, I think this is all going to hit at once, and everything's going to need to be out at once. So I don't know. Um, it all depends on the operation as to how feasible and what can be done. So, my personal preference right now, kind of looking at the way things are, I want to get my corn crop out in as good a shape as possibility. The beans, I think, as long as we don't get any more hailstorms, potentially, we can still get some moisture fluctuation and maybe bring some moisture back into those soybeans if Mother Nature could help us out a little bit. But the corn, once it goes down, it don't stand back up. So we really need to make sure that we are monitoring that corn crop closely. So if it were between the two, I would definitely prioritize getting my corn out that is ready, and or we're starting to see some stock issues come into over the beans.
As always, more info on those push tests and other things at beckshybrids.com.
Absolutely.
Lee, thanks a lot, as always.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you to Andy Peterson and Lee Koenigsfeld for that discussion on harvest season. It is time now for our closing markets. I will be joined by Ethan Robson of agmarket.net next. But first, a word from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soybean Checkoff.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
Joined now for the closing markets by Ethan Robson of agmarket.net. Ethan, we got the quarterly grain stocks report yesterday. How did the markets react here today in that follow-up?
Yeah, so really a two-sided trade going into the close today. Closed last night on the open for the overnight. Trade was down slightly as well. November soybeans trade below the $10 psychological mark. Traded right below that, all the way down to $9.93 onto the coffee break this morning. Going into most of the day, trade was down too with corn, soybeans, wheat. Soybean meal actually made 9.5-year lows, believe it or not, as well. And so live right on the screen going into around 11, 12 o'clock. And then about 30 minutes before the close at 1:20, President Trump posted a tweet saying that when he meets with China in 4 weeks, he's going to ask and demand that they buy U.S. soybeans. And so headline risk there had soybeans claw back up, was up 15 at one point, ended up closing up 13 today. So that was good to see. Had D's corn up 2, wheat climbed back as well, up 2 as well. So got a little bit of a positive tweet today from President Trump, and that had the grain and oilseeds markets excited.
So that's obviously great to have some good news to react to in terms of at least the discussions between the United States and China. But at the same time, Ethan, we have seen this movie before, haven't we, where President Trump makes a reference about soybeans or anything to do with China, and the markets grab it and react in a positive fashion. Doesn't necessarily mean that's going to have legs to it if the deal ultimately doesn't come together. I mean, we have to wait and see what happens at that finish line, don't we?
Exactly, 100%. We've seen this again and again throughout this year. Soybeans trade up to 1050, 1060, get to the top end of the range on potential China news, potential China trade deal. Something comes out where U.S.-China don't agree to or let down on any potential deal, and we go back to $10 mark, 10 mark. And so just urge producers to stay disciplined, keep proper risk management in place, especially the bushels that have to go into town this fall for harvest. Have a plan with those, have potential sales targets that are reasonable. Don't move them and stick to the plan.
So we've been focusing on the grain side quite a bit the last couple of days because of that report yesterday. But what happened with the trade for the livestock today?
Yeah, livestock relatively quiet compared to the grains as well. So livestock front months were down slightly a little bit, down 75 cents in live, about $2 in feeder cattle. But all in all, its fundamentals still remain the same. Tight demand, tight fundamentals continue to run. Cattle is just not out on the market as well. And so that's going to continue to drive the market as well. And so just urge producers there. Yes, these are great prices, but don't get too overly bullish as well. Have proper risk managements in places because a 5-10% pullback can happen. And so you want to make sure you have the proper risk management strategies in place if that does.
What about the hog side of the market?
Yeah, hog sides were slightly down as well. Still had October down $1.42 at 98.42 as well. Charts look pretty good in between the 10 and 20 days, so need to see a little bit more as well.
Ethan, what's the best way for our viewers to get in touch for more marketing information?
Yeah, give us a call here in Bloomington Normal, 1-800-779-1515. Visit us online at agmarket.net. Try out our Intel and our MyFarm software.
Lots of great marketing information and resources from the team at agmarket.net. Make sure and check that out. Ethan Robson, my guest here today. Thanks so much for the time. Always appreciate it, and stay safe out there during harvest.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you to Ethan Robson of agmarket.net, taking a few minutes to stop in the grain cart as they are harvesting here today. Once again, taking some time to join us for the show. We appreciate that from Ethan. Let's take a look at the closing market numbers. You can find that anytime under the markets tab of our website at iowaagnet.com.
December corn closes up a penny at $4.16.5. November soybeans up 11 1/4 at $10.13 even. October soybean meal down $1 at $2.6470. October soybean oil up 88 cents at $49.75. Chicago wheat up 1 1/4 at $5.09 1/4. Minneapolis wheat is down 6 cents at $5.57. Kansas City hard red wheat down 2 1/4 at $4.95.5. December oats down 3 3/4 at $3.03 3/4. On the Merc, October live cattle down 75 cents at $231.10. October feeder cattle down $2.05 at $358.98. October lean hogs down $1.43 at $98.43. October pork cutout unchanged at $105.45. Class 3 milk up 25 cents at $17.47.
That wraps up our closing market coverage and brings us to the end of today's show. You can find all of our content, including our 5 daily news stories, on our website at iowaagnet.com. You can follow us on social media at Facebook and X, and you can listen to our morning, midday, and closing market podcast, as well as our daily episodes of our Iowa Ag Matters podcast at Apple, Amazon, Spotify, YouTube, and Podbean. From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, I'm Mark Magnuson. For Riley Smith, Dustin Huffman, and Andy Peterson, we thank you for watching Ag Matters PM.